evening and welcome to our news programme this week, Saturday the 12th of June at just after 6 p.m. And what a lovely day it's been today and still is. In fact, in the studio here, it's a little bit on the warm side, certainly with the lights on, so hopefully we won't get too hot and pass 8, but if we do, all come running around and sort me out. Thank you very much. So the big question this week is, will they or won't they? Lots of speculation in the news, certainly heightened today, but in the last few days, knowing whether the government will allow the route plan to continue on the 21st of June, or will there be a short delay of 2 weeks, or a longer delay of 4 weeks, or even longer? Or will there be an alternative strategy? Well, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been on the news today, and where things were quite obviously not planning on being extended a week or two ago, certainly his words are a lot more cautious today, and that's what we've noticed. So we'll wait until Monday to find out what the government's plans are. Moving on to some good news this time from Dorset Police. You'll remember we brought you a story over the last couple of weeks of an incident in White Regis in West Hill Road at the top of Pilot's Lane, and we can now report that a man has been arrested in connection with an investigation into an alleged assault in Weymouth. Dorset Police received a report at 2:30 a.m. on Monday the 31st of May from an ambulance service personnel of a stabbing in West Hill Road, White Regis, near to the junction with Pilot's Lane. It was reported a man aged in his 40s was assaulted by a group of men. He sustained stab wounds that required surgery and was taken to hospital for treatment. He has since left hospital. Following inquiries by detectives from Weymouth CID, a 28-year-old local man has been arrested on suspicion of wounding with intent and has been released on police bail pending further inquiries. Also from Dorset Police this week, they've been tackling antisocial behaviour following car gatherings in Weymouth and Portland. Dorset Police officers would like to remind the public throughout the area in respect of reports of antisocial behaviour at a recent car meet in Weymouth and Portland. During the evening of Saturday the 5th of June, that's last Saturday, there were large gatherings of cars in various locations across the area, including the Mount Pleasant Park and Ride, Radipole, Portland, Swanry car park and Chesil Beach car park, not too far from us here. It was reported that some of the vehicles were driving dangerously at excessive speeds and carrying out unsafe manoeuvres while crowds were gathering to watch nearby. Officers from the local neighbourhood policing team and the traffic unit attended and spoke to a number of motorists. They also monitored the situation to ensure the safety of the public and keep disruption for residents and visitors to a minimum. Due to reports of antisocial behaviour and driving, a Section 35 dispersal notice was authorised for the area of Mount Pleasant Park and Ride and Mercery Way Retail Park, which ordered people to leave the area for a minimum of 6 hours. Section 59 notices were issued under the Road Traffic Act to one driver at Mount Pleasant Park and Ride and another at the Swanry car park, who were reported to have used their vehicles in a manner that caused alarm, distress and annoyance. There were also reports of car meets at other car parks throughout Dorset, and further incidents occurred on Sunday the 6th of June, including an accident resulting in a passenger in one of the cars ending up in Dorset County Hospital with serious injuries. The RNLI has just started an award scheme to enable the charity to recognise the efforts of its supporters and fundraisers for their efforts during the annual May Day Mile Appeal, which we've covered in recent weeks. The RNLI Golden Welly Awards are an opportunity to celebrate the fantastic work and the amazing contribution that RNLI fundraisers bring to the May Day fundraising campaign. These brand new awards are just for the RNLI volunteers and staff to recognise and celebrate the creativity, commitment and engagement that they bring to the May Day campaign. The awards have been given the title of the Golden Welly Award after the iconic yellow Wellington boots that the operational lifeboat crew wear. Last week we told you about Teresa Drage, and there's a picture of her up on the screen, who is the chair of Weymouth RNLI Lifeboat Station fundraising section and who undertook to walk a mile a day for every day of May. This is no mean feat for Teresa, as she needs a walk-in frame to help her get around. I'm sorry, I've got a bit of a tickle in the throat. during her walks around Weymouth with her walking frame adorned with RNLI flags, and with her Just Giving page, she's raised a total of £2,500. Teresa has been awarded the Golden Welly this week for the most challenging mile category and was runner-up in the Mayday Hero category. Weymouth Lifeboat Management Group Chair Chrissy Payne said, "Everyone of the team in Weymouth Lifeboat Station is also proud of Teresa. She set herself up a Herculean challenge, and with sheer guts and determination she completed her Mayday miles. Congratulations, Teresa. You deserve your Golden Welly." Weymouth Town Council, let's get the Weymouth Town Council thing up, there we go. Weymouth Town Council has applied for significant funding for the Tumbledown project. I think we mentioned Tumbledown project before. The council have applied for £316,000 in grants to help develop the Tumbletown area for the community. The public are also being invited to an open day on Saturday the 26th of June to see the site for themselves. The UK Community Renewal Fund aims to support people and communities most in need, creating opportunities to trial new approaches and innovative ideas at a local level. Councillor David Northern, member of the Tumbledown Project Board, said, "If our bid is successful, this money will enable us to increase 4 times the number of vulnerable people benefiting from learning skills in a healthy outdoor environment at our Weymouth Centre for Community Resilience." That is Tumbledown. The fund has got investment priorities in 4 areas. Investment in skills, so supporting local people to learn growing skills in an inclusive environment, encourage working together. Investment in community and place. This provides for more maintenance and upkeep to improve the accessibility of the whole site with better buildings, signposting, pathways, bridges and gates. Investment for local business. All the work and more than 40,000 worth of materials and tools used on the site will be sourced locally wherever possible, supporting local businesses and supporting people into employment. This, if successful, will create 5 new jobs. The key Community Renewal Fund requirement is to contribute to the government's net zero carbon and other objectives. Weymouth Town Council has recognised the climate emergency, and what they do at Tumbledown will reduce carbon output by reducing food supply chains. Our land improvements will meet ecological improvements suggested by a local ecology consultant, and our new buildings will be designed for a net zero carbon future, including solar panels for powering the site. The bid itself is being processed by Dorset Council, who's the lead authority, and if it passes, it will be submitted to the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government for assessment. And if they're successful, they will hear about the award by the end of July. The open day, if you're interested, is on Saturday the 26th of June between 2 and 4 p.m. More details will be available on the Weymouth Town Council website and on social media like Facebook and Twitter, etc. So do look out for that, and do pay Tumbledown a visit and see what they're up to. Yesterday, passengers from Weymouth and travelling to Weymouth were advised not to travel on the Weymouth to Waterloo line due to major disruption. This was due to a major signalling problem on lines from London Waterloo, which affected the entire South Western Railway network. A Network Rail spokesman commented, "This complicated and unusual failure meant a very limited service could run, and there would not be enough trains to carry everyone who wanted to travel. The impact is being felt across the entire South Western Railways network." Network Rail Southern Regional Managing Director John Halsall, speaking yesterday, said, "I'm so sorry for the major problems passengers have faced today, and both Network Rail and South Western Railways are asking people not to travel on trains from Waterloo. This is an unusually complex problem, and we're working as hard as we can to resolve it, but even if we can fix it soon, the disruption is likely to continue for the rest of the day. We can only run a limited service from London Waterloo, and as a result we're having to limit the number of trains we're running the other direction as well. Otherwise they would run out of trains. They've only got a limited number of trains, and if they don't travel in one direction, they obviously can't travel in the other direction." Local medic Wayne Ingram, we've got a picture of Wayne, here he is, has been awarded the MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours, so well done to Wayne. And this is for his work during the pandemic and many other charitable activities that he's been involved in. Wayne, who is from Portland and is a former soldier, now works as an NHS paramedic, who instead of celebrating is sadly currently in Dorchester Hospital fighting severe sepsis. So our thoughts are with Wayne and his family at this time. Thought to be caused by a bite from an insect that became infected. Wayne, who's 51, a volunteer helicopter medic who spent time during the pandemic repatriating COVID-19 patients from their places of work on the North Sea back to mainland Britain. You may remember in 2017 Wayne became the first British citizen to receive a humanitarian award from the Serbian president for his efforts helping Stefan Savic, a Bosnian boy with a rare facial cleft, after he raised £140,000 to pay for the boy to have 5 operations. Stefan, now 21, is living in a full and happy life. His other charitable work includes raising money to build a new orphanage in Mauritania and supporting Great Ormond Street Hospital. Now, one of the things, I don't know if you remember, it's not in my notes, but I've just remembered, is he, I think, stayed on a life raft in the centre of Portland Harbour for some considerable time, raising that £140,000 for the young lad from Bosnia. So that's one of the things that Wayne's done. Speaking from his hospital bed, he said, "I want to say a massive thanks to the staff on Moulton Ward at DCH for the care and support they are giving me. They are completely overwhelmed with patients and constantly short-staffed, but they continue to show amazing support to us all." Well, all our best wishes to Wayne, and hopefully he will be fit and well soon and out of hospital. And congratulations again on the award of the MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours. A historic castle dating back to the 14th century will be throwing open its doors to allow people to look around for free during open days this year, and that is the historic castle, or part of it, on the screen now. I don't know if you recognise it or whether you have even seen it. It's a very old building on the road from West Stafford, just outside Dorchester, on that road that cuts through to Moreton. In fact, I never knew it was a castle until a few years ago when I drove past and I looked back at the sign at the end of the driveway, and it said Woodsford Castle. The building, which has one of the largest thatched roofs in Dorset, is the surviving part of a 14th century castle. Woodsford Castle, we see today, dates from 1370 to 1390 and was probably added to an existing group of buildings. In 1335, William de Whitefield, the then Lord of Woodsford, was granted a licence to crenellate the dwelling place of his manor. In today's terms, planning permission to fortify his house. We don't know whether he actually did this because so much of the castle has disappeared. However, this was a time of unrest leading to the outbreak of the 100 Years' War with France in 1337. The Woodsford Castle is now owned by the Landmark Trust. It is available to be rented out, and its doors will be open to the public as part of Heritage Open Days on Saturday, September the 11th and Sunday, September the 12th. A spokesman for the Landmark Trust said the castle will be open from 10 AM to 4 PM on the 11th and 12th. Entry is free, but you must pre-book a slot. The Landmark Trust itself looks to save and manage unique buildings throughout the country and often rents them out as a means of income. Other properties that they have in Dorset, some of which you'll be familiar with, are the Clavell Tower at Kimmeridge, Wolverton Gatehouse near Dorchester, Belmont, an 18th century villa in Lyme Regis, and Dunshay Manor, Dorset. An exciting new community project is been set up in Weymouth to enable residents to borrow and share items from tools, bikes, sewing machines, fridges, and everything in between. The Wayshare Library of Things project has been started by a 23-year-old local man, Connor Hansford, and that's Connor on the screen, and encourages people to reduce waste and save money by loaning and borrowing items. People can take part in the scheme by signing up to the project's website, providing access to an online catalogue of everything that is available through the schemes. Items can be borrowed for 7 days and can be dropped off and collected every Sunday between 11 AM and 12 p.m. from the crypt underneath Holy Trinity Church opposite the town bridge. So that's the Wyke Regis side of the town bridge. If you go to the end of the town bridge, to the front doors of Holy Trinity, and you can go down under the steps that lead to the main door, and that is the crypt, and that's where the scheme operates from. The project is part of a wider scheme established by Way Forward group organisers Jason West and Baron Miles, who have teamed up with Weymouth College and the government's Department for Work and Pensions to create 5 new jobs for universal credit claimants from Weymouth aged 24 and under. Connor is among the 5 to have begun building a new career as part of this scheme, which he hopes to make sustainable by August this year when the scheme ends. He said, "The idea of a Weymouth Library of Things came from Ross Dean, founder of the Repair Cafe in Weymouth," something that I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. Libraries of Things enable communities all over the world to borrow tools and other items for a fraction of what they would cost to buy, saving people money and reducing waste. We are encouraging members of the public to get in touch with Wayshare using our website to tell us what they would like to borrow or to donate items they no longer use. Wayshare will be partnering with the Repair Cafe to ensure all the items are in good working order. Donations are currently being accepted in the following 4 categories: car and bike, tech, hobbies, and home and garden. Well, we wish Connor and everybody involved with that scheme well. And if you want to borrow any items, do look for Wayshare and Library of Things on the internet, and you will find their website and a catalogue of everything they've got to loan. I had a look earlier. There's all sorts of things like garden trimmers and all those sorts of things, electric drills, grinders, all those sorts of things that you might want to use occasionally, and it's quite handy to be able to borrow them rather than purchasing them. So that's our headlines for this week. Our first report this evening comes from an idea from this week, and when I was reminded of a tale of pirates that's been passed down through the generations on Portland. It relates to a so-called pirate's grave above Church Ope Cove. I was reminded of this as I was out on the boat MV Freedom this week, and we passed Church Ope Cove, and I was talking to the skipper and the people on board, and they pointed up to me to Church Ope Cove and the graveyard and reminded me about the tale of the pirate's graveyard. So I thought, what better story to ask our reporter Lydia to look at this week, and ask her, is it true that pirates are buried in a graveyard above Church Ope Cove on Portland?
So the question set by Gary is, are there really pirates' graves at Church Ope Cove? The 17th century was certainly the age of piracy on the high seas. The Spanish Main and the busy trade routes around the West Indies were awash with bloodthirsty pirates. Most famous of them all was Henry Morgan, whose band of cutthroats raided shoreline towns and looted ships of all nations without mercy. He was rampant in the late 1660s and ferociously active in Panama in 1670. When he died in 1688, there was no shortage of imitators eager to step into his blood-spattered boots. But what has this to do with Dorset? Well, piracy wasn't just confined to far-distant seas, and pirates were certainly in action around Britain's coast, including Dorset. Who can be sure that Moonfleet, John Mead Falconer's tale of Dorset smugglers, came only from his vivid imagination, or was it based on real pirates? There is certainly suggestions that the grave of William Lewis at All Saints Church, Wyke, is thought to have given Mead Falconer his inspiration for Moonfleet. Also, Old Harry Rocks at Handfast Point on the Isle of Purbeck is named after notorious pool pirate Harry Pay. On Dorset's fascinating Isle of Portland, the popular name for St Andrew's Churchyard, where the meagre ruins stand teetering on the edge of the East Cliffs, has long been Pirates' Graveyard. Built in 1475 on the site of an earlier building, St Andrews was destroyed by fire during a French or Danish raid, depending whose account you were reading at the time. Its rather romantic reputation as a pirate's graveyard is based entirely on the fact that some of the headstones and table tombs, both inside and outside the church, have skulls and crossbones carved on them. Anybody who has read Treasure Island or Arthur Ransom's Swallows and Amazons will know that pirate ships ran up black flags sporting the infamous white skull and crossbones as they closed in on their prey. But does this mean that every tomb that sports a carving of the skull and crossbones is the last resting place of a fearsome pirate? Not at all. In fact, the first pirate's flag was simply blood red without any decoration, known far and wide as Le Joli Rouge. This became corrupted over the years into the Jolly Roger, and the name stayed the same even when the flag was replaced by the skull and crossbones. So where did this fearsome insignia come from? It was first used in monument design in the late 1600s, during the reign of Charles II, as a symbol of mortality. It was seized upon by high seas pirates, as this was exactly the sentiment they wanted it to convey. As the dreaded pirate ship sailed ever closer to its target, the unfurling of this horrifying promise of a short future would have struck terror into the hearts of the simple, highly superstitious seafarers under attack. So the situation is not as it first appears. Skulls and crossbones on gravestones do not mean that pirates are buried there. It's just an emblem of man's mortality. Pirates borrowed this symbol of death as a very effective marketing ploy to petrify their victims, and render them virtually helpless with fear before launching their attack. Not convinced? Let's examine the facts. Inspecting the tombs of St. Andrew's Church, Portland, more closely, there's a contemporary tombstone leaning against the wall in the corner of the churchyard, under some overhanging trees at the bottom of the footpath steps. Dating to 1684, this one is decorated with an hourglass, just as unsettling in its own way as the skull and crossbones. There are two table tombs nearby, one of which belongs to Owen Benfield, but it doesn't have a skull or any crossbones. The tomb behind Mr. Benfield's does have the skull and crossbones design. This belongs to a lady whose name has been worn away by time and weather. But the rest of the inscription clearly shows that she died on January 1699 in the 49th year of her age, and that she wasn't a pirate at all. On the southern slopes, there are some smaller headstones with variations of the skull and crossbones design. One is for Julian, wife of Robert Biet, who died in May 1691, and another is for John Isles, who died in June 1723, aged 42. In the aisle of St. Andrew's Church, there's a headstone for Andrew Stone, who died in 1704, aged 80. This simple stone has small crossed bones but no skull, and is just another of several variations to the basic design. In the mid-18th century, St. Andrew's Church Committee came to the conclusion that they couldn't afford to keep repairing the wall that was shoring up the churchyard and the church. So they abandoned the old church, knowing it would eventually slide into Church Ope Cove below. They replaced it with a much bigger church at Easton, St. George Church. St. George's Church was completed in 1765. By this time, the skull and crossbones had fallen out of favour, and so examples after 1765 are extremely rare. One of the last can be found in the churchyard on the south side of St. George's, on the highly decorated headstone of Susanna, wife of Edward Pierce, died January 1771. Significantly, the design had already been modified. The skull has been placed centrally with a single bone on either side. There are many more examples of skull and crossbones designs to be discovered across Dorset. Maybe you know of some. But I think we've laid the myth of cutthroats of the high seas residing in our Dorset churchyards to rest now. So tread quietly and look kindly upon the resting souls. They're not really pirates, after all. Back to Gary in the studio.
There we go. Thank you, Lydia, for trying to dispel the myth of the pirates' graveyard on Portland. And in fact, it is just an old wives' tale. Skull and crossbones was just a sign of death that was used for a period of time. And so it's not a pirate's graveyard at all. Just local people, many of them of good standing and well respected. So it's commonplace for that insignia to be used for a period of time in the 16th and 17th century. However, what I would say is it is likely that William Lewis, who's buried in All Saints Churchyard at White Regis, wasn't a pirate, but in fact was a smuggler, and we know he was shot by the revenue men. And this is who Meade Faulkner is supposed to have used to base his story of Moonfleet on. Unfortunately, that gravestone is quite faded these days with the acid coming from vehicle fumes, etc. It has eroded the inscription away. But luckily, I was supplied with a very good photo. I think it was a postcard actually recently, which I'm going to get up on the local website so that people can actually see what that gravestone looked like, because it's part of our history. So there we go. Our second story tonight is from Janet Hall, who contributes every week for us, and we're very grateful to Janet for all her work. And Janet this week is looking at Boots the Chemist. Boots the Chemist, it's a household name that we'll all be very familiar with, and some of us may not realise how far it goes back. And it goes back into the 1800s. And I guess it's amazing how far back some of our well-known family names go. So this week, Janet is going to look back at Boots the Chemist.
Boots is now a household name, with stores all over the world and a number of hugely successful own brand ranges. It's risen from humble beginnings to become the well-known and well-loved company it is today. This is ours in Weymouth. Jessie Boot was born in 1850 and died 90 years ago on the 13th of June 1931. He turned the Boots Company, started by his father John, a former agricultural worker, into a chain of chemists branded Chemists to the Nation. In 1870, John's widow, Mary Boot, and son Jesse began trading as M&J Boot, herbalists. The sale of herbs was a big feature of the early business and included roots, plants and flowers collected locally. Many of them dried on the parlour walls at the back of the shop and then powdered. By the late 1870s, the working classes were transferring their allegiance from herbalism to patent remedies, encouraged by heavy advertising that growing numbers were able to read now. When Jesse took sole control of the business in 1877, he launched an extensive advertising campaign under the slogan "Health for a Shilling," which positioned Boots as the store which offered traditional medicines at greatly reduced prices. And in 1883, Boot and Company Limited was formed. Jessie married Florence Annie Rowe in 1886. They'd met the previous year when Jessie took much-needed holiday to Jersey. Florence, the daughter of a bookseller and stationers, took a keen interest in the business, introducing a new product range and progressive staff welfare initiatives. In 1892, his flagship department store was opened in Pelham Street, Nottingham. The impressive new shop showcased the varied array of products now available at Boots, from the dispensary, perfumery and stationery on the ground floor to the pictures, glass and fancy goods on the upstairs gallery. The exquisite interior design was heavily influenced by Jessie's wife, Florence. Impressed by the latest innovations, such as electric lighting, the store took the public fancy amazingly. The Pelham Street shop became the model for the future Boots stores. In 1894, the Boots Athletic Club was founded. The social club was open to all employees and encompassed a number of sports ranging from cricket to skittles. Jessie and Florence Boot were keen to promote sports and social clubs, seeing them as beneficial to their employees' health, as well as encouraging camaraderie and team spirit. And in 1898, the Boots Book Lovers Library was established, and within just a few years around half of Boots stores had library facilities. The service promoted the pleasure of reading to a wider audience, and the small subscription fees made literature affordable. the libraries had a significant impact. At their height in 1938, books were being exchanged at a rate of 35 million a year, and by the time of their closure, they had firmly established themselves within British popular culture. I well remember standing waiting for my father to choose books in Boots Library, right here in Weymouth. The first Baron Trent, as Jessie became in 1929, sold his controlling interest to American investors in 1920. But Boots continues to be a familiar name to all Britons. But this isn't the story only of a man who made an awful lot of money through business, at the expense of other people. He was a great benefactor to the city of Nottingham. He gave land for what is now the University of Nottingham and was presented with the freedom of the city of Nottingham in 1920. The Jessie Boot Memorial in Nottingham, right at the entrance to Highfields Park, has an inscription which reads, "Our great citizen Jessie Boot, Lord Trent. Before him lies a monument to his industry, behind an everlasting monument to his benevolence." And the bust faces out towards the factory that he built on the outskirts of Beeston, while behind him lie Highfields Park and the University, both of which were the result of his gifts. So remember next time you're in Boots, his memorial is not just that wonderful shop you're standing in, but all the things he left for the pleasure of the people of Nottingham. Goodbye for now.
Well, thank you, Janet, and that's a bit of the history of Boots and Jessie Boot, who died 90 years ago today. And I didn't realise that Boots as a name has existed for 138 years, and actually the company goes back further than that. And the bit about the Boots Library is completely new to me as well, and the millions of books that they were loaning out. So that's all new to me, but I guess that's because I'm not as old as some other people around. So thank you for that, Janet. Our last report this week looks at a historic building, and we've got lots of historic buildings locally, but I think this is one that not many of you will have seen up close. As mentioned earlier, I had the wonderful opportunity of going out on MV Freedom on a lovely summer's day. I think it was on Wednesday afternoon. We went out from Weymouth Harbour. We went out, we saw some dolphins in the bay. We went round the cruise liners. We headed off then to Portland Bill. And on the way back, we followed the route of the Portland Breakwater. And I was lucky enough to get so far along the breakwater and then to explore around the Breakwater Fort, which is quite a way out from the land. And of course, unless you've been out in a boat and you visit it up close, you wouldn't have seen it or know anything about it. So I thought, as this looked a really interesting building, I would look into it a bit, and I would use some of the video footage I used with a small report to tell you a little bit about the Breakwater Fort that is on our Portland Breakwater. So here we go. Portland's Breakwater Fort is the most imposing of the structures built to defend what was the world's largest man-made harbour. The breakwater itself was built with millions of tons of Portland stone and used the back-breaking labour of thousands of prison convicts to defend the ships of the world's greatest navy. The Breakwater Fort is the largest of several forts built at the outer edge of Portland Harbour and is the most imposing, with iron armour 20 inches thick, and it took 25 years to build. 30 men would have been stationed on the fort at any one time, sheltered by the bomb-proof iron roof and armed with 38-ton guns which were fed with ammunition stored deep inside the fort. It's 1.5 miles from Portland Harbour out to the Breakwater Fort, which was built when Britain's military might was at its height in the 19th century. The fort itself was built between 1868 and 1875 to defend the Portland Harbour. It is located on the outer breakwater of the harbour and has been Grade 2 listed since 1978. Today the fort is not open to the public and remains derelict. The fort was designed by Captain E. H. Stewart of the Royal Engineers. The circular fort was first planned in 1859. It was built as a result of the Royal Commission to guard the new Portland Harbour and the Royal Navy institutions on the island. Due to subsidence, the fort was constructed on a granite base some 200 foot or 61 metres in diameter, which was laid down on the seabed. The main floor consists of gun rooms and ports for 14 heavy guns. Below the gun floor are the shell and cartridge stores and engine rooms. The fort also has its own harbour and ancillary barrack block. The cost of building the fort back in the 1860s and 1870s was £75,968. In 1892 the fort was installed with 7 12.5-inch cannons, and these were replaced in 1907 by 2 6-inch guns and 2 12-pounder guns. During World War I it was armed with 2 6-inch Mark 7 guns. During World War II the fort was used as an examination battery. It was reduced to care and maintenance by 1945 and abandoned in 1956. In 1995, the Dorset Sculpture Trust attempted to gain a grant from the Millennium Fund to turn the site into an arts centre. Today, the site is completely abandoned and is deteriorating significantly. However, it's an interesting site to visit, and if you get a chance to visit it on one of the boat trips from Weymouth or Portland at any time, it is well worth a visit. There we go, that's the Breakwater Fort, also known as the Chequer Fort, out on one of the main arms of the Breakwater. And it would actually make a fantastic visitor attraction, quite a fantastic and different building out there at the entrance to the harbour. I know about 5 years ago it was investigated whether this might actually happen. At the time then they thought it would take £10 million to make it safe and make it available to the public. Who knows, maybe there's somebody listening who's got the odd £10 million, or who has got the drive and enthusiasm to apply for lottery funding or other funding to see whether they could open it up as a fantastic visitor attraction for Weymouth and Portland. So we come to that time in the programme now where we're going to see what the national weather forecast is for the week. And we're going over to the Met Office, and joining us this week is Alex Deakin.
Hello, welcome to your latest update from the Met Office. This weekend promises plenty of blue sky, lots of sunshine around. However, that sun is going to be very strong, high or very high UV levels. You will need the hat and the sunscreen this weekend. Temperature-wise, not especially warm on Saturday, although temperatures generally above average, but higher temperatures expected on Sunday afternoon. And there'll be plenty more of that sunshine around on Saturday evening as well. The cloud will continue to thicken across Northern Ireland and more particularly across the Western Isles of Scotland. There's a weather system moving in here that could just bring a little bit of drizzle, but otherwise very fine conditions persist through Saturday night as that high pressure continues to move in, and it brings with it warm air as well up from the southwest. So temperatures will be higher on Sunday. Notice that weather front though across the far north. That will introduce small cloud and some rain, especially over Shetland, but also over the hills and mountains of western Scotland. There will be some drizzle at times. At low levels though, it will probably just stay dry and cloudy. And for much of Scotland, Northern Ireland and certainly the vast majority across England and Wales, it is simply another sunny day. And as I said at the start, it will be warmer. Temperatures more widely up into the low 20s and perhaps peaking in the southeast, 28, 29, 30 degrees isn't completely impossible. So temperatures will be higher on Sunday, a warmer feel. Again, the coast will be cooler, and obviously it will be cooler with that weather front and a bit of rain across the far north of Scotland. But generally lots of sunshine to be had this weekend. Those UV levels though will be high or very high. Don't forget the sunscreen and the hat. And also grass pollen levels will be high or very high. More information on that on the website, and make sure you're following the Met Office on social media.
Thank you very much, Alex, for a nice weather forecast for the weekend. Now let's see what the local weather holds for the week ahead. And there we go. Looks like we've got sunshine for the rest of this evening and tomorrow and into the week. Now it looks as if we might get some thunder showers and thunder storms on Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe some more significant rain on Friday. But what we do know, when the weather is hot, then things can change rapidly, and we might get the odd thunderstorm, or we may continue with the dry and sunny weather. But so far so good this week. Looks to be a nice week, other than maybe the odd thunderstorm. So moving on to traffic and travel, looks to be a fairly quiet week ahead. Famous last words said there. Looks like the only roadworks planned in the area that I can see on the appropriate websites are Wessex Water continuing their work in Williams Avenue at Wyke and in Bar Lane at Chickerell. Of course, the traffic will be heavy over this weekend with all the extra visitors in the area and the good weather. So if you're out and about on the roads, allow extra time to travel, and please be extra vigilant, remembering that there'll be lots of people on the roads who don't know where they are and don't know what they're looking for. And also remember, after the stories that we covered last week, think bike. Do give an extra glance for those bikes, particularly if they're coming up the outside of any queues of traffic and you're about to pull out. With our What's On this week, mention of course that the Pavilion is now open, and there is a whole raft of shows on the Pavilion website, including some of the shows that were postponed from last year that are being reprogrammed in. If you had tickets for any of those shows and you're still holding on to them, do give the Pavilion box office a ring. I think you'll find they are still valid, and I think at the moment the website is not operating for booking seats, I think because things have got a bit complex, so they're asking everybody to ring the box office on 01305 783 225 to book your tickets for the Pavilion. The Knowth Fort has got a couple of shows coming up as well. They've got Weymouth Drama Club doing Arabian Nights on the 10th and 11th of July, and they've got Opera Anywhere presenting HMS Pinafore on the 16th of July. For more information on those and all the other events at the Knowth Fort, do pop onto the Knowth Fort website. And in fact, the Knowth Fort is the sister fort to the Breakwater Fort. It's the same sort of era, and those are the two forts that were actually put in place to protect the harbour. Other venues are now just about fully operational. Venues like the Dorset Museum, the Keep Military Museum in Dorchester, the D-Day Centre on Portland, Portland Castle, Portland Museum, the Weymouth Museum, Fancy's Farm on Portland, and of course the Sea Life Centre. If you've got any events coming up, or you are involved in a venue and you're opening up, do drop us an email at news@whitecoregies.tv, particularly if you're doing any fundraising or events, or you're doing any voluntary work and you're looking for volunteers. Do let us know. We'd be more than happy either to just promote it or to come along and do a report with you to run in a future programme. Of course, Cineworld is open as well in Weymouth now, and do look at the Cineworld website for all the films that they have coming up. We mentioned last week that coming up over the summer, particularly towards the latter part of the summer, Weymouth and Melcombe Regis are celebrating 450 years of the charter that brought them together. Now, there are lots of events being planned. I know there's quite a lot being planned in White Regis that I've seen some plans for, and we will, as soon as we're given the okay and the details, be sharing those with you. If you are doing any events elsewhere in Wyke or in Weymouth to do with the 450 celebrations, do let us know. We'd like to put together a full programme of events and to publicise them so that they get the best support from the community. This week we're not going to be previewing a film. We're actually running short on time, and actually we've caught up on all the film releases, so there isn't actually any new films to let you know about. There are a few in the pipeline, so we will be going back to that in future weeks, and we do get a weekly update from major producers such as Warner Brothers and Disney, who let us know what is up and coming. Don't forget, of course, tonight is our quiz. And that's at 7:30, and everybody's welcome on this channel and all our other channels. On Friday we do have our Year in Gardening with Clive Gray. If you're interested in gardening and projects in the garden, planting in the garden and problems in the garden, then Clive is there on a Friday night. And I know lots of people are watching that, and we're getting some really positive feedback about that programme. If you've got any questions for Clive, we're running some of last year's programmes, and we are doing interspersing it with new programmes that Clive's producing. Do let us know. We can ping them across to Clive if you've got any questions, and then maybe he'll cover those aspects in one of his up-and-coming programmes. So there we go. If you like news, we've got the other local voluntary news outlets up on the screen now. Chesil Radio, Keep 106 and Air 107.2, all very different in their outlook, so there's something available for everyone if you like to keep up with local news with a local provider. And so all of those are run by volunteers, which is brilliant. And I don't know about you, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but probably 80% of what I watch on TV is news. I'm a bit of a news freak, and I like keeping up with the news. There is a new TV news channel being launched this weekend. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, GB News is being launched. It will be available on Freeview, although you won't get it on terrestrial Freeview down here because we don't get the full range of channels. It will be on channel 515 on satellite and on the website www.gbnews.uk. I thought I'd mention that in case anybody wasn't aware and wants to go and give it a look. I'm going to go and have a look at it and see what it's like. Lots of well-known names have actually left some of ITV and BBC to actually join this new channel as a new way to deliver news. Well, there we go. That brings us to the end of this week's programme. It's just on 10 to 7, and I'm going to leave you shortly and go and get prepared for the quiz, which will start in about 40 minutes' time. So thanks for joining me this week. Have a lovely, warm and sunny and safe week, and I look forward to being with you again 6 o'clock next Saturday. Good night.